This is the City of Waupaca's City Plan Commission meeting.
Okay, so tonight's special meeting is we have a public hearing, and then after that, then we're going to go into a special City Planning Commission meeting. So let's start with the public hearing. Today is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. It's 5:17 p.m. and I'll call this public hearing to order. In attendance, we have Eric Olson, Angela Lesage, Alan Keelan is remotely with us tonight. Justin Behrens and myself, Brian Smith, we are the commissioners. Then we have staff, Aaron Jensen, and then also Jeff Sanders is with us remotely, and then we also have some people in the audience tonight. So this is a public hearing for the conditional use permit for Home and Aways Ministry Incorporated, which is 705 West Fulton Street. We're just going to read parts of the public notice so we can go from there. You are hereby notified that the Home and Away Ministries Incorporated has made application to the City Planning Commission requesting a conditional use permit in accordance with section 17.157, parent 3, parent B of the Municipal Code, FSC Fulton Street Corridor Overlay District, conditional use. Any use listed as a permitted use or conditional use in the I-1 district to allow a distribution center as a conditional use in the FSC Fulton Street Corridor Overlay District, more fully described as follow. And then it's 705 West Fulton Street, and then they, of course, go into the long paragraph explaining the actual location within the city. And then it finishes with, you are further notified that the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on the request on Wednesday, May 19, 2021 at 5:15 p.m. in the council chambers, City Hall, 111 South Main Street, Waupaca, Wisconsin. The hearing will be for the purpose of giving an opportunity for any person interested, their attorneys or agents, to be heard. And this was published on May 6th of 2021. So the way a public hearing works is that we give the people that are in favor of the conditional use the opportunity to just give reasons why they think that conditional use permit should be allowed. And then after that, then we allow people to give testimony in opposition to why we should not allow the conditional use permit. And we ask people to stand up to the podium, give their name and address for the record, and they have a time limit of 3 minutes or less. So at this time, we'll take testimony in favor of the conditional use permit for this property. If you'd like to, as I said, if you'd like to give comments and testimony in favor, please step up to the podium, give your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes or less. Any testimony in favor? All right, any testimony in opposition? Any testimony in opposition? I'll declare this public hearing closed at 5:21 p.m. All right, let's go into the regular meeting then. Let me pop it up here yet. All right, so I said regular meeting, but this is a special. So I'll call this special City Planning Commission meeting to order. Again, it's Wednesday, May 19th, 2021, and it's 5:21 p.m. We are in the council chambers. In attendance, we have Commissioners Olson, Lesage, Smith, Behrens, and then Keelan is with us remotely. And then we also have our staff is helping us out, Aaron Jensen, and of course, Jeff Sander is our zoning person, so he's with us remotely also. We have an agenda in front of you. I don't think there's any additional items or handouts for that?
Nope.
So we'd be looking for a motion to approve that agenda as printed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Lesage, second by Olson, that we approve the agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, and then we had some planning commission minutes on May 5th that were in your packet, and we always, we like to place these on files with a vote of approval from the planning commission. So unless you saw something on the May 5th minutes, I would ask that we have a motion to approve those also.
Move to approve.
A motion by Olson,
Second.
second by Lesage, that we approve the planning commission minutes of May 5th, 2021. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, let's go into our action items, and the first action item is the request for a conditional use permit for Home and Away Ministries Incorporated at 705 West Fulton Street. And before I turn this over to Jeff and Aaron, I want to just make sure that the public knows that we had a public hearing before this meeting, and we did not have anybody that made comments in favor of the conditional use or any comments in opposition to the conditional use permit. So, Aaron, is this going right to Jeff, or do you want to?
Yes, sir. I think that'd be appropriate.
Jeff, hi, how are you?
Nope. Jeff, you're on mute.
Mayor Smith, I'm doing well tonight. How are you?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. As Mayor Smith prefaced the public hearing, conditional use permit is required in this instance. The property is zoned B4. However, the use, food distribution center or distribution facility, is a use allowable or permissible in the I1 district. Again, as Mayor Smith mentioned earlier, a use that is permitted or conditional in the I1 district is permissible with a conditional use under the Fulton Street Corridor overlay. So that is the reason we have a conditional use before us this evening. The proposed use, again, distribution facility. If you go to the page with my recommendations, Aaron, on pages 3 and 4, you'll see the specific conditions I'm recommending to be applied to this conditional use permit. They include that the conditional use be maintained and compliant with the requirements of the authorized site plan. You may recall that the Plan Commission a couple of months back approved the site plan for Ruby's Pantry. All site improvements agreed to that site plan must be maintained consistent with that site plan throughout the duration of the conditional use, meaning any non-compliance with the site plan requirement immediately constitutes non-compliance with conditional use permit. So each of those permits could be revoked. The CUP itself governs only the use covered in this particular situation, which is the distribution facility. All other uses, whether they're principal or conditional, are outside of the purview of this particular permit. My recommendation is that product delivery and pickup shall be between the hours you see before you, 7 o'clock a.m. through 6 o'clock p.m., Monday through Saturday, and 9 o'clock a.m. and 4 o'clock p.m. on Sunday. That vehicles, including refrigerated tractor trailers, shall not be left running outside of these hours. That all product and material storage shall occur within the principal structure, and exterior storage is specifically prohibited, including within trucks, tractor trailers, and other vehicles. That right now, I believe, ingress and egress is limited to West Fulton Street by default, but that no other access would be permissible in the future without an amendment to the conditional use permit. That the property must be maintained free from trash and debris. And that any changes to the use of this property, the addition of any structures or any accessory structures shall require or potentially require an amendment to the CUP. And finally, the CUP is valid as long as the use is in place and maintained compliant with the zoning ordinance. That is all I have.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the explanation in each of those areas. Okay, staff, Aaron or Justin for that matter too, any comments that you guys might have?
The only comment I have, Jeff, and this is something that we had talked about after some input, was the amount of truck traffic that moved in and out of there. I know in talking with the representatives from Ruby's Pantry, Home and Away Ministries, that said an average of about 7 trucks a day, but could be up to 15 at the max. So I know when we've talked on this exact subject, when we talked about the site plan, Justin, our Public Works Director, had worked with the DOT, Strand, his expertise in determining what would be a negative impact of the street and what would not. That 15 was something we were working off of, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is where we would have that listed as a condition to basically make that a rule of no more than 15 trucks per day. And if it got to be 30, then that would give us the chance to revisit this permit. Is that correct?
That's correct, Aaron. And I think that based upon the conversation that Aaron alludes to, he and I had earlier today, an additional recommendation for the Plan Commission to consider as a condition of the CUP would be that no more than 15 trucks per day are permissible under the terms of the CUP. At any point where that number exceeded 15, that would bring the use into violation. It would require either an amendment to the conditional use permit or removal of the violation, meaning no more than 15 vehicles. So that is something I would recommend as an addition to the recommendations you see before you. And I also believe we're going to discuss 1 or 2 other items that the property owners have raised. Aaron, do you want to open that up and then perhaps we can have that discussion?
Jeff, let me make sure that I understand that. So when we talk about the maximum of 15 trucks, we're talking about tractor trailers. I'm assuming that wasn't my question, but that's what I'm assuming we're talking about. So that would be letter K. Is that how that would work?
Yes, sir, that would be correct. I think I would word it specific to vehicles that are involved in the distribution or involved in the operation of the distribution element of this facility. So it would not apply to staff vehicles coming and going, or I don't know, FedEx or UPS or Postal Service deliveries. It would be specific to the vehicles used in the operation of the distribution facility. I'm not sure yet whether that would be tractor trailers or something a little bit more generic to include trucks that are large delivery trucks but aren't tractor trailers. I would word that accordingly to make sure we're not overly burdening Ruby's Pantry, but also that we're not creating some sort of exception where they could have some other trucks coming in and out. That makes sense.
It does. Well, in my simple mind here, I'm thinking of a vehicle that would have to swing out into another lane to be able to turn in to the property. And, so a normal car or like a FedEx van or something like that would not have to swing out to get into the property, but some of those large box trucks, or especially a tractor trailer, would have to swing out into the other lane, and those are the ones that we're concerned about the most.
Correct, and I think it's my opinion that we covered that adequately or sufficiently within the site plan review process. As a condition in the CUP, it wouldn't be about how the vehicles are entering or what they need to do to enter the property. It would be specific. It would be specifically associated with the maximum number of vehicles allowed to conduct deliveries or, again, operate the distribution facility per day. And as Aaron mentioned, I believe the number is expected to be 6 or 7. There will be on average per day. There will be some days where the number could go into the early teens. 15 seems like a reasonable number, given that we're talking about a light industrial use, given that the majority of the uses surrounding the property, but for the eastern side, are non-residential in nature. The building itself will serve as both a visual and potentially a noise buffer to the east. So really, it's about setting the operational conditions of the conditional use permit. And what I would do is word it in a way to those vehicles that are specific to the operation of the use, which is, again, distribution facility.
Okay, thank you. So I interrupted you before, so go ahead, Jeff, go back to where you were.
But that's your prerogative. Aaron, do you want to introduce the subjects that we discussed earlier, and then perhaps we'll talk a little bit more about them for the Plan Commission?
Yeah.
Does Jeff know that there are, like Lynn and his, I'm not sure of all their names, but I know that Lynn is here.
Yep. So, Jeff, I think he is aware. Lynn and Paul and Julie are all here representing Ruby's Pantry. And yeah, I can speak to that. So usually the question comes up, I'll just jump to it. If the representatives are aware and okay with each of the conditions on the report, that conversation had been had, and they are, with the exception of one. And I'm not going to get into that, but I will allow them to speak on that. And Paul, I don't know if you want to speak on that or what. But.
My name is Paul Kinsley. I'm with Ruby's Pantry. I live in Balsam Lake, Wisconsin, but I'm over here regularly with regards to this site. Yeah, we have some difficulties with item D, which, as is written and as Jeff has read, product delivery and pickup shall be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. through 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Sunday. And the vehicles, including refrigerated tractor trailers, shall not be left running outside of these hours. That doesn't fit within our operational plans, unfortunately, for a couple of reasons. One is we have sporadic runs to Chicago that we need to pick up food. And in order to do so, we usually have a 6 a.m. docking time in Chicago. So we need to leave on those occasions somewhere around 1 in the morning to get there, to get our load and to bring it back. And then that truck is basically done for the day when it gets back. But we are not in control of how many times we go. It's usually once a week. Sometimes it could be 2. But we do need to be able to have, for those long distance runs, a earlier departure time. And again, when they come out, they're going to turn west and go up Fulton Street to 10 and go out of town that way. So they're not going to be going into the residential areas with the trucks. The second part of this that we're concerned about is the 7 a.m. through 6 p.m. Weekday operations. Again, we have to get out early sometimes because trucks have pickups for items around the area. And we get on the road about 6, they pick up, bring it back, and they may have 3 or 4 different stops around the state to pick those things up. So we would like to have a 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Time schedule for those days. And the reason I'm saying 10 p.m. is we have pantries that may be at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon up in Cumberland, Wisconsin. And by the time we get up there, we have to help them unload, and we then have to load back up and come home. 10 o'clock is about the time we would get in, and if there's anything that needs to be unloaded, the drivers themselves will unload it. So we would feel comfortable with the 10 p.m., and again, it's not all the time, but it does occur, and I don't want anybody to be under the impression that we're trying to skirt the issue on this. We want to live within the guidelines here and do what we're asked to do. The final thing on this is that same time frame with regards to the refrigeration units. And Mayor, you brought this up last time we were here. Our workers in the warehouse work Monday through Friday. We have deliveries on pantries on Saturday morning. So our practice has been that we load those Friday afternoon, run the refrigeration units that night. The truck comes and picks it up in the morning and then take off. Now, as Jeff said earlier, we've got the building that is between us and the residential area, and these trailers will be backed up into the dock area in order to be running. So there's a buffer with all that being right there on the, basically attached to the building. So that would be Friday nights and Friday nights only. The 4 or 5 trailers that would be running to keep things refrigerated so that it can go out early in the morning on Saturday. So those are the areas we would like to see adjusted to help fit if at all possible.
Okay, so Jeff, let's start with what I would call the easier discussion here. So the product delivery and pickup is 7 a.m. To 6 p.m. and that's staff recommendation there. Where do we get that recommendation from? Is that common?
Good question, Mr. Mayor, and it is. That's the standard that we have applied in the past to other uses that have required a conditional use permit, that have frequent deliveries and pickups. That does not mean that the numbers, those hours are the right hours. It's the Plan Commission's prerogative to set those hours as it deems appropriate, allowing for an earlier start and a later end to that working hours timeframe. The 6 o'clock a.m. doesn't, from a staff standpoint, does not concern me as much as the 10 o'clock p.m. on a weeknight. But again, that's something I think the Plan Commission should strongly consider and make its decision based upon its opinion of the merits of the request. I wish I could give you more than that, but that's the best I can do.
Yeah, and so I'm not trying to hog the discussion here, so I'll let everybody talk, obviously, but quite honestly, 6 a.m. does not create an issue for me personally, and actually I think it might help the flow of traffic in the morning. If they have to wait till 7 a.m. to get out of there, I think there are more people coming into town at 7 a.m. than there are at 6 a.m. I travel that at all different times of the week, and I would say 6 a.m. as long as they don't start before 6 a.m. because that's our norm. We don't like to see garbage trucks in our town before 6 a.m. or deliveries to construction sites before 6 a.m. or people pounding hammers before 6 a.m. So I think I'm okay with the 6 a.m. I'm not the at night too. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm okay with 10 p.m. too, quite honestly, but I could be persuaded not to, but I can't think of any reason why, if they were to deliver at 10 o'clock at night or take off at 10 o'clock at night, that would be an issue. Anybody? Eric?
Do we have to have any restrictions at all? I guess I'm just wondering, I'm thinking about the foundry in Plant 1, and they're fairly close to residential over there too, and I think they're 24 hours for trucks. I'm just wondering, I don't think that you're going to go out of your way to have trucks come at odd hours. You're going to try to avoid that the best you can, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And I don't know. I have got no issue with the semis, and I'm just trying to think of how close the residential is. And you said there's a buffer building,
Buffer,
right?
the building buffers there, and then the trailers themselves will be backed into the docks while they're.
Paul, if you want to talk, will you please use a microphone?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I should have said
That's
something
okay.
too.
That's okay.
No, we're in a business that we really don't govern. When somebody calls and says we have food for you to feed people with, we go, but based upon when they want us there. Your idea makes a lot of sense to us, but I also didn't want to feel like I was asking for the moon with this, because we can't control what they tell us we have to do in order to get the food. And if we are not able to get the food, we can't feed people, and that's the purpose of our ministry and our business. So we want to make sure we're not creating problems in the community, but we can get the food so we can distribute it throughout here and the state. And we will not make certain that we have a 1 a.m. run every day. But we may have it twice or 3 times a week. We just don't know.
Right, and that's why I'm kind of thinking we just have no restrictions as long as we don't want to disrupt your operations. We want you to try and operate the best you can without these timing restrictions. And I have personally no issue saying, 24 hours, just run it as you feel you need to run it, but also with the understanding that there's residential and that your trucks need to be respectful of that if it's odd hours.
Right.
I mean, I live close to a four-way stop, and I hear trucks and motorcycles just revving all night long. So I don't have any issue with. I don't think semis go out of their way to make noise. So that I have no issue with changing it to just no restrictions at all. But I don't know how the rest.
I would support that, Eric, because Aldi, Pick and Save, Piggly Wiggly are getting deliveries late at night, first thing in the morning, because they're stocking after hours. There's apartments north of Aldi, can't remember, Western Avenue to the south by Pick and Save, and Piggly Wiggly's right across the street from their building. And their trucks are coming in. I'm certain they're coming in the middle of the night. So why would we restrict one and not the rest?
Right.
And I would agree with both of you. In fact, I think our trains make more noise than the semis
Oh,
would.
yeah, for sure.
Get in that tonight.
Okay, so if I'm hearing, Angela, any comments? Okay. So I'm hearing from 3 of the 5 commissioners tonight that they're okay with unlimited delivery and pickup, and you're talking Sunday through Saturday, every day of the week. You're okay with that? Okay, all right. We probably should, at some time tonight, we should probably make a motion to adjust that letter D for the recommendations. And so that would solve your problem of leaving at 1 a.m. I mean, if it's wide open 24 hours a day.
It does, and we will do our best not to make sure it's an everyday habit. But again, with regards to our mission and our business, we're looking to feed people. And if we've got somebody that's willing to give us a trailer full of pallets of food, we want to get that and get it out to the people. But it's not our intent to be running up and down the street at midnight and stopping at Hardee's or any of these places and get something to eat to let the trucks warm up.
So, we keep commenting about this is not a residential area, but there is property that the city owns that is residential or could be residential. It's vacant right now. But, hopefully in the near future, there will be residential right behind that area. So we're right now, yeah, you're right, it's not residential. But in a couple of years, it certainly could be residential, especially as our land is getting used up in our city. All right, so I think that addresses your first 2 parts of this. How about the last part that Paul talked about, which was in D, was talking about vehicle, including refrigerated tractor trailers, shall not be left running outside of these hours, and Paul is saying that up to 5 trucks could be running on Friday night when the tractors get there, and then they would be unloaded Saturday morning, and then that would be the only time that there would be refrigerated trucks running outside of the building facility. Thoughts on that?
So they would just be sitting there idling with their reefers going?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be the case, yes.
So that's, I mean, I don't think that's super loud. They're not revving up or anything. It's just
No,
kind
it's
of
just,
a
it's
hum, right?
basically the refrigeration unit sitting there and running on its own engine. It's not even hooked up to the tractor most nights. The tractors come in, they're garaged someplace else, and then they come in and pick them up in the morning.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm against this. So, I mean, I've seen what's happened down on 10th Street, and we've tried to stop them from doing it down on 10th Street, and they've basically ignored us and continued to do that because we felt they were in violation of our ordinances by running those in a residential area. And so personally, I think it's a bad idea, and they've abused it once, and I think they'll abuse it again.
Is there any way to avoid it? I mean, if we say we can't allow that, what could you do differently?
Well, without the use of, without the use of the building and being there, we have some of them that are electric, but do we have electric power? Okay, I'm gonna let Lynn talk here.
I'm Lynn Sarr, and the Executive Director of Home and Away Ministries. And one of the things at 10th Street, the problem that you're referring to, is we don't have a freezer there. So all the frozen stuff is over in Stevens Point. We have almost a 9,000 square foot freezer being built in the warehouse. And so the food coming in will be there, but we're not going to be having the same kind of problem, and we'll not be running stuff outside anywhere near the amount that's what's been happening right now. And that's part of the reason why we are building the whole operation, is to eliminate some of the need that we have. And so Friday nights, those reefers would still run, but they're not loud and obnoxious. The motorcycles are much louder than these units by far. And I don't think it'll be a problem with the noise because of where the buildings are sitting and the car dealership over here. And I don't see it carrying out into any neighborhoods. There just isn't that much around there to do that. But the big thing is that we have a huge freezer going into that building, and that's going to make a big difference. And generally speaking, that running on Friday nights so they can leave early Saturday morning is it's almost a necessity to be able to do that, to get the food out. And they're not, and I think at 10th Street, there's also, we have a person that has been very negative towards us, and we don't understand that totally because we've not tried to do anything that would create that problem. But sometimes in life you can have someone that just is negative to what you're doing, and you can't control it. And so I think those sort of things can happen, but that wasn't never part of our plan. So I think that if you can be gracious about this, I think you'll find that it will work fine. And we certainly don't want to be a problem. We want it to run nice and smooth, and that's part of our philosophy. So,
Let me ask this. If things become a problem, can we revisit this and make a change or request a change?
Jeff, can you speak to that?
I can. Once the conditional use permit is approved, it would require both parties to agree to a change.
Jeff, real quickly, site plan, how does that come into play? Amendments to site plans, can you speak to that? Is it the same? Is it still the same where both parties would have to agree to a change in the conditional use permit to even review a site plan again, or how does that work?
So the two are not necessarily tied to each other in that respect. Any change to a permit that has been granted requires approval of both parties. And the only exception to that would be if the property owner, the business owner, is requesting a change to the site plan, for instance. And at that moment, think of it as opening that door again. At that point, the city could consider other changes beyond what is being requested. But as long as the operation is consistent with an authorized site plan, the city cannot compel any other requirements nor change the requirements of that site plan. The same applies to a conditional use permit. What the city could do is put a time limit on the initial CUP. For instance, this conditional use permit could be granted for 6 months or a year, the permit then expires and the property owners would have to come back and reapply. And at that point, it would give the Plan Commission an opportunity to reevaluate not only the operations of the facility, but the conditions that were put upon it to determine whether a change should be required. With Mayor Smith's permission, I can address a couple of the comments that were made regarding the first part of item D, if that's acceptable.
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
So one of the conditions that we placed on the coffee shop was, and I'll read it, quote, 24-hour deliveries shall be permissible subject to a prohibition against loud and disturbing levels of noise between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So if the Plan Commission is amenable to that requirement, basically what we would say is that Ruby's can have deliveries 24/7, but at no time can those deliveries result in loud and disturbing levels of noise between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Is that something that the Plan Commission sees as a viable alternative to the first sentence in condition number D?
Isn't that subjective? What's loud? I mean, how do you determine, who determines that?
In the case of a conditional use permit, it's the Plan Commission.
Got to stand out there. Decibels?
Yeah, that's, as Jeff just said, that, you know, that's totally up to the planning commission, but I don't think that would be an issue unless you had complaints.
Right. I kind of like his idea to have a time limit. I just, how painful is that? Is it going to cost them more money to come back and reapply? If we put, if it's a 6-month period or a year?
Jeff,
Go ahead.
are they subject to that $350 CUP fee in that case?
That would be, it depends upon the way the CUP is written. If it's written as a 1-year conditional use permit that must be reapplied for, the answer is yes. They would have to submit a new application for conditional use permit at that time. If it's a 1 year for review and determination of continuation, then there wouldn't be, it would not be an application.
So explain that again to me, Jeff. I guess I was not.
No, that's probably my fault. So there are basically two ways the Plan Commission could rule if you're going to place a time limit on this. One could be a hard time limit. Basically, the conditional use permit is authorized for 365 days from the date of signature of the permit. So the date of authorization by the Common Council. When that 365 days is over, that conditional use permit is no longer valid and a new CUP would have to be applied for. Another alternative is not to set an expiration date, but to set a review and renewal date. So same basic principle, 365 days after the issuance of the permit shall be reviewed, and based upon the Plan Commission and Common Council's prerogative or authority, a determination whether to continue that permit would occur. In that case, there would be no reapplication on the part of the property owner. It would just be a decision. And the continuation could be for another year, could be for 5 years, or it could be in perpetuity.
Can it be less than a year?
Yes, sir.
I don't think it makes sense to make them repay for another permit.
So the second one,
Yeah, I would say the second.
and if you're going to have issues, you would think that those issues would come out fairly quickly, right?
Can I
So-
just ask one more question?
go ahead.
You said since there's going to be a freezer in this new building, that it lowers I didn't understand that, lowers the amount of trucks that will be running every night or every Friday, or?
We have freezers running different times, stuff going on that will not happen over at the new facility because we have the freezer right there and everything will be inside, and that'll make a big difference.
Okay.
The other thing is, I think it should be good for everyone to realize we're spending almost $2.5 million on the building. So it's not like just a quick paint job or something like that. We have a substantial investment going on, and I think in all fairness to us, that should be considered as part of the deal.
Would you be be opposed to the 6-month review, just to see if we've got any complaints at that time?
Yeah.
And if all is smooth, then we
Yeah,
decide.
I
at
don't
that
have any
time.
problem with that. You know, I think that whatever makes you guys comfortable, I think that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we want to be. We don't want problems. We're not looking for problems. And I think a review down the road is fine if you want to do that.
I mean, it sounds like you're fairly confident that there's going to be no
We are
issues. So
confident.
if that's the case, then in 6 months, we say, okay, no complaints, and give you whatever the commission decides, I guess. at
Yeah,
that
we're not concerned about the noise level.
It'll take a little of your time, but no more money.
Yeah.
So
I would like to clarify one thing. It's only on Friday nights and Saturday mornings that those refrigerator units will run.
Say that again, please.
It is only on Friday nights and Saturday mornings, early mornings, that the refrigeration units would run.
That's not always the case. There can be other times as well. But that's the general format of when the most of them would run. Otherwise, there may be one running at night or something going out the next morning, but it's not, you know, I don't think you're going to find the noise to be a problem. If you ever listen to a reefer run on a semi-trailer, they're not loud and it's not bursting out and loud noises and that sort of thing. It's not horrible.
Mayor, can I say something?
Sure.
So, Lynn, everything that's been communicated with us to this point was that it would be limited to Friday nights and Saturday mornings. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think and I don't know if we're going this direction, but if Plan Commission decides to go a direction in which it's, let's say, a review period can happen, I would say any time, maybe up to 6 months, but would for sure happen at that 6-month time, defining when that activity of refrigeration units would be happening, I think is important in the
Yeah.
conditional use permit.
We're not concerned about the noise, so it doesn't matter to us when you want to review it, because I think you'll find it'll be just fine. And but we do have some other times that we load the trailer on an afternoon and it goes out early the next morning. So it's not just on Friday nights. But Friday night, most of our distributions occur, a lot of them, like there might be five distributions on a Saturday, and we're affected by that on Friday nights.
Justin wants to say something, but let me ask a real quick question here. So conditional use permit is final at the city planning commission level, or it has to be approved by,
It has to go to council.
okay. So I do hold veto power on this. Just everybody understands this. Okay.
So
Justin, go ahead.
I've been taking notes, and I just want to clarify that what we've talked about so far is adding item K, which would limit the total number of tractor trailer hauling type vehicles for distribution to a maximum of 15 per day. And then are we going to remove D entirely, but then have the ability to review in 6 months? Did I get that right, or are we just going to alter D in review in 6 months?
I think D would be revised to whatever Plan Commission decided was the appropriate language.
Was it the language that we used for the coffee shop? Is that what we?
I like that for the first part. I think that makes sense. You know, and basically it's just saying, don't be loud, you know, for the deliveries and stuff. But that really had nothing to do with the running of refrigerated vehicles and throughout the night.
Is there any way that, or is it completely random? Is there any way that it's like, so refrigerated units are ran Friday nights and also once on Wednesday? Or is that not an option?
It's not feasible.
Okay.
Can we use the coffee shop wording, but then add on there, including refrigerated? I gotta look up the wording
There you
again.
go.
So add that, use the coffee shop language, and then use the second sentence a little bit, including refrigerated tractor trailers, period.
to say if that noise becomes offensive, right? That's what you're saying.
So in the 6 months, if the refrigerated overnight becomes an issue, then it's much easier to pick out. Because I mean, I know, I get it. The building's screened, but sound travels this way. It should bounce away, but we don't know for sure. We don't have a little noise meter thing, so we don't know. There are residentials right there to the east. There could be some on the south in the future. And if you guys are certain this is not going to be an issue, then it should be an issue to adopt it now.
We're not concerned about the noise level. I know you guys are unaware of that, but we're not concerned about it. It's quite quiet, really.
Jeff, how would we word that if, one thing I'm thinking, we've talked about a year, we've talked about 6 months. I'm just saying, if there is complaints, if Plan Commission starts having complaints and it is an issue from neighboring residential areas, I assume we can word that to review it as needed in the first 6 months. We don't have to wait till the 6 month mark, correct? 6 months would be a long time if it was an issue.
That's correct. So compliance with the requirements of the CUP would begin the moment the CUP is approved. So if somebody were to issue a complaint regarding noise, it would be incumbent upon the zoning administrator to investigate. And if a violation is determined, they would have to bring that noise into compliance or be in jeopardy of having the CUP pulled.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we need to spell out that coffee shop wording for the motion?
If you would like, Justin, I can read it with the amendment that I believe you suggested.
Okay, go
and
ahead.
that would be something along the lines of the following: 24-hour deliveries, including 24-hour deliveries and the operation of refrigerated tractor trailers shall be permissible, subject to a prohibition against loud and disturbing levels of noise between the hours of 10 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock a.m. And you can wordsmith that to make more grammatical sense.
24-hour deliveries in the operation of refrigerated tractor trailers would be permissible. Then I lost you.
Subject to a prohibition against loud and disturbing levels of noise between the hours of 10 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock a.m. And the only addition you might want to consider is making it 24-hour deliveries and 24-hour operation of refrigerated tractor trailers, etc.
24-hour deliveries in the operation of refrigerated tractor trailers would be permissible, subject to a prohibition against loud and disturbing noise between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m.
10 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock a.m.
Sure.
Okay.
So this is just addressing letter D. It's not addressing that we will look at it in 6 months or a year or whatever we decide. That would be another motion, I'm guessing, Jeff?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So if you look at item J, Aaron, if you could scroll down a bit. Item J says the conditional use permit shall be valid as long as the conditional use is maintained compliant with the zoning ordinance. That would be changed to read: the conditional use permit shall be valid for 6 months from the date of authorization, as long as the conditional use is maintained compliant with the zoning ordinance. And then the next item would be some wording of after the initial 6 month conditional use permit, the Plan Commission shall review and make a recommendation to the Common Council to approve a continuation of the conditional use or deny the conditional use, something to that effect, or modify the requirements of the conditional use.
Okay, so I want to go back and address the refrigeration part again, because Paul made the comment that it was only going to be Friday night. Lynn gets up and he says it could be anytime, any night. So this is where we are again, and this is exactly what happened on 10th Street too.
I made that comment. We have distributions that go on in the mornings in other locations. We don't have any morning location distributions going on here, which I was not totally aware of. But Friday night is when we absolutely have it going on like that. And so, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't add a morning distribution at some point in time. Right now, you have 36 distributions operating out of Waupaca. In my estimation, that the maximum that we normally would do would be 40 with the present crew situation without adding more employees and running a second shift and all that sort of thing.
How many trucks do you have running throughout the night on 10th Street right now?
We have 20 semi-tractors and about 50 trailers altogether.
And they're all running?
Well, we have some that they break down periodically and are not running, but they're fixed again. And
No. Their reefers are running at night. Their engines are, the refrigeration is running at night.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
The only time we have them running here at night, I guess, is on Friday nights. Say that again? Right, here, but that's because we don't have the freezer and cooler. Yeah, there are trailers that are running all the time where we're at right now. And that's our understanding, but that's not the case with the new facility. And so we have trailers running at all our locations at different times at night because we have distributions in the morning. Right now in Waupaca, we have no distributions in the morning except for Saturdays. So when they talk about Friday nights, that's a true statement. But in our other locations, we have some that have distributions in the morning in other places. Not a lot, but some. So the trucks are generally, the people come in the mornings and load the trucks, and then the trucks are gone. That's the way it normally works. Friday night is the real exception to that rule.
So what if we put in D that it was only for Friday night?
Well, that would just eliminate from doing morning distributions anywhere else, and we could live with that if we needed to, But that right now, we don't have any distributions other than Saturday mornings. The rest of them are all afternoons.
I think if you're going to get this approved, you're going to have to agree to that.
It's fine, we can do that. Not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, again, I'm Paul. But I do have one question about this because you were talking arbitrary with us, and I understand that completely. But I would like to know what loud noise is. I would like a definition of what that is. I mean, I can get upset because the kids are outside playing sports, which really doesn't bother anybody else, but it bothers me. What is going to be the definition of loud or excessive? Because we don't have anything to go by. I mean, we could think it's fine, and somebody down the street could say, that's just too loud, but there's nothing in there to judge it by. Is there a decibel level? What are we looking at here so that we can have some congruity when we talk about this where we are? It just seems like the cards are stacked against us. If people come up and say it's too loud, well, it's part of the operation of business. And if we can't have some guideline, I think it puts us in jeopardy. And spending $2.5 million to put us in jeopardy in 6 months doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Jeff, again, do you want to explain what that would mean if we do what the changes that you had just said before? And D, how do we figure out what's loud?
Yes, sir. Excuse me. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So the language is, again, prohibition against loud and disturbing levels of noise. So what we're not doing is saying you cannot exceed a certain number of decibels. That would be clearly measurable, right? We set a standard at 85 and it's 86. That's in violation. When you use the term prohibition against loud and disturbing levels of noise. It's based upon two things. One is community standards, and the second, the most important one, is ambient noise. Ambient noise changes over the course of a day, right? So during peak business, or excuse me, during drive time, drive-in in the morning, and after work hours, ambient noise along West Fulton Street is probably higher than it would be at 1 a.m. in the morning. So there is a standard that's set at 1 a.m. in the morning. It's a community standard. Any noise that exceeded that standard to the point that it disturbed residents or property owners nearby would be in violation. So it does, in this case, it would not require a specific measurement to say, you're only allowed to go to 75 and now you're at 100 decibels. It would be a determination by the Plan Commission and the Common Council that the ambient noise at that time is being breached or exceeded by this particular use. Now, as Mr. Saar mentioned, I believe, in his opinion, this noise wouldn't be an issue. So the balloon, if you will be the ambient noise at 1 o'clock in the morning at that place right now, tomorrow, the day after, the day after, the day after. If the moment that operation of this facility and the refrigerated tractors begins and it clearly exceeds that ambient noise, they would be in violation. That determination would be made initially by staff and then by the Common Council and Plan Commission.
So I think your best answer, quite honestly, Paul, is that there are 7 members normally on the City Planning Commission. So at least 4 of those commissioners would have to say that it's too loud. So it's not like it's just one person that would say it's too loud. We don't have the conditional use anymore. And then besides that, then you have to go to the city council and you'd have to have a majority of the council members that would also have to say that. Okay. So I think you are.
Mayor, you'd also have to have a public hearing to revoke a conditional use permit. So it'd have to go through that process as well.
So you'd have numerous
protections in.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to be brass about this, but the way it was leaning kind of left it out there that somebody could just say, well, you know what, they're too loud. I can't sleep. We are going to change the ambience the first day the trailers are sitting there on a Friday night. So you know what's changed. But I just want to be comfortable in the fact that we're trying to do a service. We're not here to cause problems, but we can't do a business if we're handcuffed. And that's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying somebody's out to get me, but knowing the rules and the guidelines makes a lot of sense.
It does, Paul. But also from a planning commission standpoint, we have to be concerned with our residents and what their concerns are too.
And I understand that completely. Yeah. I don't want a train running by my house at night either.
Yeah.
So I understand. Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, so in D, if we add that it would only be, I think, Justin, you've been working on it. So,
Should I read what I
yeah,
got?
so he's gonna read what he heard from Jeff and then what he's heard from us. And let's see if you guys are okay with this as well as the commissioners.
24-hour deliveries in operation of tractor trailers would be permissible, subject to a prohibition against loud and disturbing noise between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. and operation of refrigerated trucks permissible only on Friday 4 p.m. to Saturday 7 a.m.
Okay.
Justin, a correction, that would be 10 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock a.m.?
Yeah, because everything else
Irish or what?
Eric, go ahead.
You had mentioned your veto power, and I'm just wondering, is there something in this that you're not liking that you might veto?
If we change letter J, well, I don't like the running of the trucks outside at all.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to see what happens in 6 months.
Okay. So
And
you
Lynn
like
might be completely right, and we don't have a single complaint.
all right. So you
And
like
even
the
if we
review.
have a single complaint, that doesn't mean,
Right, right,
I mean,
right.
I'm all for the majority here, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second.
I did want to ask them if you're okay with D? That he, as he just read it? Are you guys okay with what he just read?
Yeah. We're fine.
Okay. And then J is, do you want to make a motion just on D or?
Mr. Mayor, can I jump in before that motion is made?
Yeah, go ahead.
The main body of the wording that Justin read was what I narrated prior to the limitation on Friday nights. I think that needs to be reworded.
Okay.
It's right now, I believe Justin said it's 24-hour deliveries and the operation of the refrigerated truck, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's the follow-up that says the refrigerated tractor trailers can only be operated Friday to Saturday morning. That first reference to the tractor trailers probably has to be removed. Correct, Justin?
It reads 24-hour deliveries and operation of tractor trailers would be permissible subject to a prohibition against loud and disturbing noises between the hours of 10 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock a.m.
Correct. And then the follow-up was the limitation on the operation of tractor freezers on tractor trailers to only Friday night to Saturday morning, correct?
And operation of refrigerated trucks permissible only on Friday 4 o'clock p.m. to Saturday 7 o'clock a.m.
So I guess what I'm suggesting to the Plan Commission is I believe, based upon what I heard, is that first reference to refrigerated tractor trailers after the 24-hour deliveries should be struck.
Yeah.
That's not in there. There's 24-hour deliveries in operation of tractor trailers would be permissible. That's what it says.
In operation
Deliveries and operation.
Yeah, my apologies, Justin. When I said the operation of tractor trailers, I was referring to the refrigerated tractor trailer. So forgive me, that's fine. Apologies for jumping in.
So you're okay with it? Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, and then J, I have to review by Plan Commission in 6 months, at which time the conditional use permit can be altered or approved and sent to Common Council for final approval.
And then we also have K, which is a maximum of 15
Yes.
delivery pickup vehicles.
Do we want to have 6 months or sooner if the commission wants to have it sooner or something along those lines?
Can
Because
you just say within 6 months?
within 6 months?
I
Okay
can.
with that? Yeah.
I believe you cannot do that under Act 67. You have to set a specific time frame. Now, you can revoke the permit at any time for non-compliance, but you cannot set an arbitrary deadline for the CUP review.
So it's got to be at 6 months.
At 6 months or another specified date, correct?
Okay.
That's fine, because didn't we say if there was a complaint, then it comes and we talk about it?
Right.
I think we have a member of the audience that would like to speak to this. Is
Yeah,
that all right?
Don, go ahead.
Hi, I'm
Give your
Don.
name.
Don Fisher. I own the two properties to the east of Ruby's. And truthfully, the traffic thing, I'd be more for it at night. I mean, that bothers me. I'm more worried about truck traffic during the day, just to say something on that. One thing that I didn't see in this is there any verbiage on distributions happening at this site during the day? Because they did a few distributions over the last year that caused a bigger traffic jam than probably the semis would, especially with my workplace.
I can speak to that, Mayor.
Okay.
And Don. So yeah, that has come up. I got that input actually from another individual as well. It's actually something we've talked to Paul. I've talked to Paul specifically about. And I've also talked to Jeff about the distribution of, Jeff, this is where they had some ice cream giveaways in the front of their parking lot with a tractor trailer. That actually is not allowed per zoning.
Okay.
So that is something that they are aware of at this point. Jeff, and I know, Paul, you've told me that is not in your plans in the future. That's not something that will happen again. If it did, Jeff, what would be that action from a city standpoint?
Yeah, good question. Not allowed does not mean the same as not allowable, right? So the three options available for uses in any zoning district are a permitted use, a conditional use, or a use customarily incidental to a principal use. That last one would be a use that's not defined but is part and parcel of the main use. So in this case, could a distribution facility distribute directly from a vehicle to the community? Yes, potentially with a temporary use permit. Yes, potentially with an amended site plan permit. No, if neither of those two are approved. So the use itself would have to be either permitted, either conditional, meaning you'd have to have another conditional use permit or an amendment to the conditional use permit, or it would again have to be customarily incidental to a distribution facility. Now, one of the things that Mr. Kinsley and I talked about maybe 18 months ago or so was the full list of all the things that Ruby's Pantry anticipated as uses from this facility. And I'm not sure that we've got to that point yet. We've talked about very varied health providing services. We've talked about other things. Right now, the only use that's allowable out of this facility, out of this property, is a distribution facility under the terms of the CUP. Every other use is effectively prohibited unless there's, again, an amendment to the site plan or a temporary use permit or something along those lines.
Does that explain it to you, Don? Or do we need to put it in English?
Yeah, exactly.
They can't do it. They can't do it unless they come back
Okay.
and request
Right.
that they can do that.
No, and with the noise, I am less concerned about the noise. Now, all fairness, I don't live there. I work there during the day, but I think there will be a buffer, and just thought I'd throw that in there. So, and again, the truck traffic in and out during the day makes me a little nervous. So,
All right. Thank you, Don. Okay, so we have not had a motion yet, but we do know that we changed D and J and we added K.
Just a motion.
Did you make a motion?
I said I'd like to make a motion.
You'd like to make a motion.
Oh,
And then
He won't let me.
And then, no, Jeff interrupted.
Go for it.
I'd like
true.
to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit with the following adjustments. Adding use K, limiting the total number of tractor trailer and hauling type vehicles used for distribution to a maximum of 15 per day, and then revise condition use D to read 24-hour deliveries in operation of tractor trailers would be permissible subject to a noise or prohibition against loud and disturbing noise between the hours of 10 o'clock p.m. and to 7 o'clock a.m. and operation of refrigerated tractor trailers permissible only on Fridays 4 o'clock p.m. to Saturday 7 o'clock a.m. and to alter conditional use J to say review by Plan Commission at 6 months, at which time the conditional use permit can be altered or approved and sent to Common Council for final approval.
Forgive me, Justin, I do have one comment. I think
boy.
the way item D was read right now, in theory, the operation of the refrigerated tractor trailers could be as loud as even could be imagined and would still be permissible because the loud or the noise requirement doesn't apply to that use, the way the amended section or the amended D was read.
That's what we discussed.
Justin, could you read recommended D one more time?
24-hour deliveries and operation of tractor trailers would be permissible subject to a prohibition against loud and disturbing noise between the hours of 10 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. and operation of refrigerated tractor trailers permissible only between the hours or only on Friday between the hours of 4 o'clock p.m. to Saturday 7 o'clock a.m.
I guess the question I have for the Plan Commission is, does the first sentence adequately cover the second sentence from a noise standpoint? Or does it create a potential for misinterpretation?
trying to figure out what the trucks are going to do differently in the middle of the night that they're going to do. How are they going to be noisier? I know the ambient is, but what are the trucks going to do differently? Are they going to?
I think he's just talking about the refrigeration running.
Correct.
And I really
Hold on
don't
just
think
a
it's that
second.
big an issue, so I will second that motion.
You have a second on that motion, Alan?
Yep, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Justin and a second by Alan. I'm gonna let you speak. Alan, to change D to what Justin had read, and then also we're changing J, just basically adding in 6 months, we're going to revisit this. And then K, which is limiting, or there's a maximum amount of trucks that can be used or can deliver. And so Paul is up back at the podium. So Paul, what did you want to say?
Just a quick clarification question, if I could, please. We're talking about with the refrigeration units from 4 p.m. on Friday until 7 a.m. on Saturday. That is not saying that we can't run the refrigeration units during the daytime. Am I correct? We're talking noise, so noise is at night, that's the way it was addressed? Or is it saying we cannot run the refrigeration truck or refrigeration trailer at all during the daytime after they're loaded?
Well, okay, so I think it doesn't, here's my opinion on this. I mean, when you're loading your trucks, you need that refrigeration going so that it's
Yes.
cooled, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's, yeah, that makes sense.
That was my interpretation, but I had questions and I just wanted to clarify it. We're not into the 4 o'clock time until 4 o'clock time comes, and that's what you're talking about here.
Right,
Okay, thank you.
yep. Yep. Okay, anything else on this? And we're okay with everything else that was in there? There's a motion. Let's just do a voice vote. It might be easier here with the people we have. So, with those changes, Eric, how do you vote?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Justin?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
And myself, aye. So that's 5 ayes, no nays, and 2 absent. The motion carried, and that is being recommended to City Council. And that will be at our June 1st City Council meeting. Okay, can I ask you, now that we're done with that motion, so the plan is, I mean, when will you be in operations? And this is just for me.
Yeah, we probably won't, we're going to start June 2nd or whatever the date is, when we get the permit finalized, but it's probably going to take all summer before completion, so it's probably not going to be done till September. That's my guess.
Okay.
We're not in total control, but
Yeah.
that's my guess.
So then, once you're up and running on Fulton Street, then shortly after, the 10th Street property will be shut down?
Shut down, yeah.
Shut down and
We'll
sold?
we'll shut it down, but we expect it'll be sold by then and somebody else will take over,
Okay,
so.
all right,
Well, there you go, Mayor. That takes care of one of your problems.
right? Well, that's part of the reason why we're here. Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, okay, thank you. Good luck to you.
Yep,
can-
thank you. Thank you for your getting all this handled for us. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, you certainly can stay if you want, but we have some other items on our agenda.
No, that's fine. We'll
All
take
right.
off. Thank you.
Yeah, we want
Thanks,
you guys
guys.
to succeed. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Yep. See you, Paul. Some of us. Did you want to say something? Yeah, go. We still have 4. But then.
But this is a
Aaron's gotta
discussion
do
on
this.
temporary signs. He's already doing it.
Well, this is just discussion too, right?
Yeah,
We
these are,
can't make motions on it?
what do you have there? Just,
I got the motion sheets. You've been.
I
filling
also
out
have
too.
motion sheets. So I think I can take care of the rest.
I will send what I got to Sandy. You just got to put a German on there.
Yeah,
Okay,
sounds good.
so we're good.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, go. Don't miss that. Well, get going. All right, let's talk about discussion on enforcement of temporary signage in residential districts. I'm assuming this is political driven.
Yeah, yes, for us non-zoning administrators, we can say that. So I'll set this up a little bit. A couple months back, Mayor and Eric, you'll remember, we had some conversation at council. Also received some input outside of council meetings about the political signs specifically that were still up in the city. What can we do about that? There's state statutes that give a time frame at how long they can be up. We have a temporary sign ordinance that, of course, becomes much bigger than just political signs. So there are rules and laws that say you can't determine a sign and police a sign by the content of it, which is what Jeff is here to explain to you guys, and that how this has to be handled from a legal standpoint, and then kind of a suggestion on what we've talked about doing as that first step. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. I think the most important part that Aaron mentioned is that the category of sign that in the past would have been referred to as a political sign now falls into this category called temporary signs. And temporary signs include things like for sale signs and really anything you can imagine putting up in a residential neighborhood, smile for puppy dogs, peace, whatever the case may be. These are now temporary signs that are regulated under the zoning ordinance, because the alternative would have been no ability to regulate those signs, including the signs that I suspect the council would prefer to be regulated. One of the things that becomes immediately obvious is the moment we take enforcement action on this, there is going to be considerable discussion within the community about the purpose of that enforcement. And one of the things that staff have talked about is potentially prefacing that enforcement action by creating a very brief flyer that explains very simply why the city must do what it must do with respect to signs. Let everybody know that these are the types of signs that are that fall under the definition of a temporary sign and the time limits for these signs, and basically create a grace period within which landowners can remove those signs or transition potentially to a permitted sign. And then once that grace period is over, then the city would take the enforcement action necessary to administer and enforce its zoning code. The difficulties, again, are created by the content neutrality ruling of the Supreme Court a few years ago. Communities are struggling with how to do that right now. Again, we can't regulate a political sign because a political sign is content-based. Aaron mentioned that there is a state statute. It's chapter, I get it wrong, it's either 12.04 or 14.02. I think it's the latter. That basically says you cannot put a sign up. A political sign or a campaign sign can only be installed so many days prior to the campaign period and must be removed within a specific number of days after the campaign period. But is the city of Waupaca comfortable with staff administering and enforcing a state statute that may in and of itself not be compliant with the content neutrality requirements of the Reed versus Town of Gilbert decision? So it's just a very, very complicated situation. And what staff hopes is that this postcard notice that would go out to every tax parcel in the city would be a way of introducing the subject. I don't know that it would ameliorate any of the strongest feedback or pushback that we're going to get, but it would be, I think, a kinder, nicer way of bringing up this subject than Elizabeth Holsworth and I drafting notices of potential violation that start going out to every property owner that has a, Go Waupaca High School sign in his or her front yard. So I'll stop for a second and address any questions the Plan Commission may have.
Well, I guess I like the idea of just notifying the public, that political signs should be taken down. Once, they lose their effectiveness anyways. I'm not sure why people continue to put them up there. So I like the idea of not giving them violations for this. I really do. I would prefer to just, hey, this is what you need to do, and we'd appreciate you taking it down. And I think that takes care of 99% of the problem. And quite honestly, I've seen less and less signs, you know, in the last month, I would say, now that people are out mowing their lawns and stuff like that. So, you know, they're taking them down. I have seen some on some pedestal signs around town and a couple in some people's front yards that are both Democratic and Republican. So, I mean, it's not like we're picking on one political view there. But, yeah, and so let me, I'm rambling, but so if we were to send out a postcard and just state the state statute, that's kind of what you're saying or not?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. I think well, first of all, it's going to be up to the Plan Commission and the council to determine whether this postcard goes out. And certainly staff would prepare a draft that we would wordsmith and get to you for review. Right now, we're still struggling with how to address the state statute. I had conversations with the Wisconsin Elections Commission and other parties in Madison that basically began with me asking a simple question. Is this statute compliant with Reed versus Town of Gilbert? And the answer by all the attorneys I spoke with is almost certainly no. So does the city of Waupaca want to risk enforcing a state statute, even if it's subtle, that in effect could be in violation of the Constitution? That's the discussion that we're having at the staff level right now. Whereas this this term temporary signs is codified and established in the existing code that we can enforce without bumping into any First Amendment issues or any, legally questionable issues related to the enforcement of a state statute. So if you'd like, I can just read the brief description of what a temporary sign is in the residential district. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I want to make a comment afterwards to you, but yeah, go ahead and do that while you have it there.
So let me preface that by saying, first of all, ground signs, that typical monument sign or pole sign that we see in business districts all over the city, those are and have been expressly prohibited in residential districts going back probably to the 1990s. They are not allowable now. So if there is a ground sign in a residential neighborhood, in an R1 or R2 lot, that's an unlawful sign and that must be removed. What we're talking about is signs that are put up temporarily. They're not structurally affixed to the ground by a concrete or a pole embedded into the ground. So a temporary sign in residential districts, the ordinance reads as follows. One temporary sign subject to the following. Sign shall not exceed 16 square feet in total face area. Sign shall not be located in any public right-of-way. Sign shall not be artificially illuminated. Sign shall not be erected more than 15 days, that's 5 days, before, and shall be removed no later than 5 days after the event, activity, or purpose for which the sign is intended, excepting those signs specifically allowed under Chapter 12.04 with stats. So what we're saying is we can't overrule state statute even if the state statute is not compliant with the Constitution. So that's the language right now, and that language covers garage sale signs and real estate for sale signs and just the types of signs that people put out in their front yard to express their personality. And what we're trying to say is you can do one of those as long as it's compliant with those requirements. If the Plan Commission would prefer more to be allowed, or if the Plan Commission would like 1 or 2 signs that could be effectively up in perpetuity, all those are options available. But right now, the way the zoning ordinance is written is as I read.
Yeah, go ahead, because I do too, now that I read it.
So
So does a realtor, maybe.
So Jeff, I get it. You mentioned the dilemma between enforcing a state statute that a lot of attorneys, or every attorney would say, is not in compliance with the Supreme Court ruling. But you specifically said enforcement. If our first step is just doing a postcard that basically cites the state statute regarding political signage and the terms they're supposed to be up, we're not enforcing it. Then we're also not talking about Go Waupaca Comet signs. We're not talking about realtor signs. We're not talking about that type of thing. In my eyes, that maybe we're not putting ourselves at risk there, right? We're just citing a state statute that exists and informing them of that with no enforcement.
Right. So I think I'd preface my comment now with saying that's a question probably for Attorneys Hart or Attorney Sorensen. What I can say is if that postcard goes, being an overly cautious person when it comes to the First Amendment aspects of zoning, if that brochure goes out or that flyer goes out and those signs are not removed, which quite possibly they're not going to be removed, and then at some point thereafter, we have to begin the process of administering and enforcing the temporary sign regulations, which will include some of those signs. My concern there is that those two issues could be conflated by the property owner and potentially conflated by the legal counsel for the property owner. And I don't know if that puts the city at greater risk because we inadvertently tied our administration and enforcement of the zoning code to a state statute that may not be compliant with federal law. That's the part that I don't know. And it's certainly, I guess what I would suggest, Aaron, is that once you and I, Rhonda and Elizabeth, have a working draft of this postcard, we ship it off to city attorneys and ask for their legal opinion. Clearly, they're going to be far more qualified than I to weigh in on that.
So when you talk about realtor signs, and this is probably, Angela probably has a better question on this than I do, but, so if a realtor puts up a sign because the house is for sale, when do you think we're not talking about those signs, right?
No, sir, we are talking about those signs.
We are. So how do you determine 15 days before and 5 days after? 15 days before they're going to put it up for sale and 5 days after it's been sold, or 5 days after it's occupied? It seems complicated to me. And quite honestly, I don't, and I'm assuming most people would not have an issue with a realtor sign. But what you're saying is that if we're going to govern political signs, then we also have to govern real estate signs.
The short answer is yes. And the question I would ask is how can staff, the council, or plan commission determine that something is a real estate sign, a for sale sign, without using the content of the sign to make that determination? If the reason, if we're saying it's a real estate sign because it says for sale, we're actually regulating the content of that sign. We're using the content to determine whether that sign is compliant or not. And that is an absolute violation of the Reed versus Town of Gilbert decision. So it has to be content neutral. We can regulate the height of the sign, the size of the sign, its location, its structure, what it's attached to, if it's attached to something, that it's installed properly, that it meets wind loading requirements. What we no longer can do is regulate signs based upon the content of the sign. So a for sale sign, a political sign, a yard sale sign, a Waupaca High School sign, those are all, everything I just described are content descriptions of those signs. What we did is, what I did is tried to find a way to regulate all of those signs that are content neutral. And the way to do that is to regulate the size of the sign, its location, whether it can be illuminated, and then set a time frame within which that sign can be installed. So at any point a for sale sign can go up no earlier than 15 days prior to that house going on the market. After that house is off the market, that sign has to be removed no later than 5 days from that date. So is off the market mean when the property's closed on? That would be my interpretation as a zoning administrator, that 5 days after the property is closed on, that sign would have to be removed. If it's a garage sale, it would be the same thing. Keep in mind, garage sale signs go up on a Thursday night and they're taken down on Sunday. If they're not taken down, they're really hard to enforce because, well, unless they have the address or the phone number, you don't know who put the garage sale sign up. What we're trying to do there is make sure that these signs were allowable because we know that they're important. We know that we want them. But if we don't set a time frame, then there are signs that we may not want to be up in perpetuity that will stay up in perpetuity. And that's the political signs that we've discussed. Does that,
It does.
I hate asking that help, but does that help?
It does, Jeff, but I'd like to ask Angela, you know, as long as we have her here, I mean, that's probably common practice, isn't it? Kind of? Or?
So you won't have to worry about, well, you shouldn't have to worry about the 15 days prior because that's illegal. So as a realtor, if you're marketing a property before it's officially listed, that we get a fine if you get turned in. So legally, we're not supposed to have a sold or for sale sign up until 24 hours prior to the home is listed or it's on the MLS. But after it's sold, I think most realtors leave it up for a week because the agent who sells the home, they don't get to market that they were actually that agent until after it's closed. So they're trying to get some recognition in the community, like, hey, I'm the one that sold this property, not the listing agent per se. So I can't say that every realtor picks their sign up within 7 days or within 3 days. You know, everyone's different.
So is there some leeway on that back end, Jeff?
Yes, sir. The time limits are subjective in the zoning ordinance. So the plan commission can make them shorter or longer based upon its preference.
Because even political signs, to get them down within 5 days might be difficult, quite honestly. You know, and if your candidate wins, you probably want to celebrate for a little while too, you know, so. So, I mean, if we were to say 15 days, 50, yeah, both, anybody, yeah. I guess I was asking you first.
I think that's fair, personally.
Yeah. So and it kind of makes sense, 15 days before and 15 days after.
Yeah.
Although, you know what? Political signs go up more than 15 days ahead of time, too.
Way before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of my times that I've put up political signs. When I ran for a state office, I put mine up in June, you know, and the election wasn't until November. So, yeah. So, and I don't think I'm any different than anybody else. It didn't help me anyways, by the way, but.
There's nothing on the books for political signs?
There is,
There
but
is, it just isn't consistent with federal.
Is it too late to fine you?
to find me. Thanks a lot, Alan, for finding that. Go back and go fishing.
What you read earlier, that's currently being enforced, right? On our current signs?
It's currently in place. We're still in the process of deciding when to initiate enforcement.
I mean, signs get taken down.
So what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to send some notice out and then have, because the way we would do it in a consistent manner with federal law is that it couldn't just target political signs. It have to also be a notice to, we have to canvass the city. It'd have to be a realtor sign. It'd have to be someone with a Go Waupaca Comet sign, which people would not, people are going to be like, what's going on? Why? It's a Go Comet sign. Why am I getting a postcard on this?
Yeah.
That's what we're,
You know what I would like to do here, quite honestly, is I would like to table this for a month and think about it. You know what I mean? The more I think about it, the more I think it's going to take care of itself, quite honestly. And I don't want to pray America and maybe there's some political reasons why that's out there. I don't know, or a comet sign, or my granddaughter just won the state champion. I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff.
I think you're right about the political signs, though. I think I'm not seeing that many. There's just a few around, and sooner or later they're going to just be an eyesore because they're going to start to just kind of decay, and they're going to probably want to take them down at some point themselves. Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah.
But maybe I like the idea of tabling it.
And maybe we all take the month to think about it.
Yeah. Alan, go ahead.
I will make the motion to table.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Alan, second by Angela, that we table this discussion till a future meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Again, say no. Motion carried. All right, Jeff, thank you for that explanation. Let's go on to the discussion about, now I got to go back to the head of the agenda to word it right. Where are you? I need to print the first page. Okay, this is discussion on 17.318, parent 4, parent A4 of the building design standards as it concerns attached garages. And you can see on page whatever, there's a house with 3-car garage on it on the top up there, page 23. So, Aaron, Jeff, I'll let you guys go from there.
all right, I'll set this up. So this is a building permit application that came through with plans last week. It came to our attention that through a zoning review process, Jeff was not able to sign off on the zoning review because this house did not meet the zoning design standards. And the reason being is that the garage facing the street accounted for more than 50% of the front facade, which is that's our maximum requirement in our current code. Now, we kind of added this to the agenda late because this is not something that was in our code prior to the November adoption. We've talked about when you have a whole new code rewrite, there will be real life examples that come forward that will say, hey, is this what we want? Or is it something we want to have another discussion about? So that's what we're here to do. Jeff, anything you want to add to that before we open it up for discussion? Jeff, if you're on, you may be on mute.
Muted.
Thank you, Aaron. Sorry about that. The previous zoning ordinance regulated garages by saying effectively garages may not, Aaron, what was it? May not be built to accommodate more than 3 motorized vehicles or something to that effect. And the problem with that, of course, is what constitutes a motor vehicle. So in theory, somebody could build a very, very large garage that could park 3 converted Greyhound buses. And it would be an enormous garage, but it would still comply with the 3 motor vehicle requirement under the old code. Most zoning ordinances today are not based upon the size of the garage in terms of its footprint, but the relationship between the garage and the principal structure. So the language in the current zoning ordinance, the one in place right now, reads as follows. Garages and garage doors shall be scaled appropriately to the size of the principal structure. The main mass of the garage shall be complementary and subordinate to the main mass and positioning of the principal structure. The second point is no more than 50% of a street-facing building facade shall be made of garage doors. So my interpretation of that ordinance and the structure you see before you is that first, the main mass of this building, looking at it right now, is not the single family dwelling, it's the garage. And secondly, that the garage doors represent more than 50% of the facade of this structure. So it was in violation of those two sections of the zoning ordinance, or is in violation of those two sections of the zoning ordinance.
So I'd like to just add a little bit to this, if you don't mind. So this building permit is for a lot that's out at Foxfire. So if you're driving into, and I live out at Foxfire, we all know, Alan, no comments. And so when we're driving in on Foxfire Drive, which is the one that goes past Par 4, you turn right and you go to my house. If you turn left, about halfway down on the left-hand side, this is the lot that they're talking about, just so you're aware of that. And I also, and I might be wrong, but let me also tell you this too, that this subdivision does have covenants, and these covenants do require that you have a 3-car garage. Now, has everybody followed that out there? No. Has anybody disputed it? No. But if you're following the covenants, they have to have a 3-car garage. Now, that third garage, a lot of the people have been out there have been just using it to put in a golf cart in that, But mine actually is 3 full, it's a double garage door plus another 9-foot garage. And I don't know, I didn't measure mine, but if my house was built today, I think my house would be in violation under the new zoning. And I think the way this house looks right now, it looks like almost all of the houses that are out in that subdivision. So personally, I think we need to change the zoning to allow for this.
I agree.
So, okay, we kind of staff had a feeling that may be Plan Commission's thoughts. I do want to ask the question, is there a requirement or is there a percentage that should be in place? Or are we talking about going back to the 3-car garage? What change would you like to see made to get out of this situation into a situation that is best for the community?
I'm assuming that your concern is that people are going to start building like shed homes downtown. Is that what we're concerned with?
Yeah, and I don't know. I'll let Jeff speak to that. Like, here's some other examples. So if you look up on the screen, there's like this is a lake home. Like, so a lot of lake homes would have almost 100%.
Very common.
This is, I wouldn't even call this a home, but I think you get the idea. It could be dominated by a garage with a very small living quarters. I did ask Jeff, we had a conversation because Mayor brought up a question a day or so ago. Well, can you do it based on the proportion of the house? So let's say the garage square footage can't exceed the square footage of the first floor living area, for example. Jeff, I'll let you speak to that in just a second. Theoretically, you could do that. Yeah. And just to give an idea what this looks like compared to that, this is 900 and some square feet garage space. First floor living area is like 2,400 square feet. So the basement was part of it.
Yeah.
So that's just what this would look like. Also, I did talk to the builder. This is a builder that's built in the area. He's built about 90 homes in his career. And this is a standard what he's built. He's built around the county. It's not abnormal. He also said that because it's a narrow lot, like many city lots are, it's 5,000 feet across, it kind of led to this as well. So just some more information.
That's what I was going to bring up, is that a lot of our city lots are narrow. So it's really going to limit, and obviously we want new construction coming in. Because that's tough. We have setbacks from the side lot lines. We, have a lot of other regulations.
Yeah, I envision you can see the back end of it too, that that probably one of the far right garage is probably, you know, not in front of the house, but off to the side of the house. But the two-car part of it to the left is right in front. And like I said, that's almost identical to every house that's out there. And even one that's being built right now out there look like that.
So Jeff, what if we just remove, so let's theoretically, Plan Commission wasn't worried about the amount of garage space facing the street, or didn't think that it would become a problem. Jeff, could that just be removed if that was the direction?
And Aaron, I apologize. I lost you for a moment, kind of mid-sentence. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I just asked theoretically if Plan Commission just wasn't concerned with the amount of garage facing the street yard, percentage-wise, could that just be, this part just be struck out of the ordinance and removed, and it wouldn't have a negative impact on anything else, if that was the direction?
Of course. I mean, the Plan Commission and the Common Council have the authority to strike it. Whether or not it would have or wouldn't have a negative impact would be a determination by the Plan Commission and the Council. You may recall we had this conversation and we talked about this issue when the ordinance was in a draft form. I also had, there was language in that prohibited triangular windows and trapezoidal windows, and the Plan Commission chose at that time to keep this garage requirement, but remove the window prohibition. I don't recall who it was, but somebody mentioned vaulted ceilings with triangular windows and things like that. So we struck that section completely from the ordinance. The main reason for this language in zoning ordinances today is because many developers are building massive garages with houses that may be equally large, but they're not visible from the road. And it's an aesthetic argument that when driving by a beautiful neighborhood, do you want to look at a beautiful house or do you want to look at a beautiful garage? That's an aesthetic determination. It's a subjective determination, and it's certainly the Plan Commission's authority to say, you know, we don't have a problem with that, so let's remove it, or to change it from 50% to 70%. All those options are available to you.
Yeah, we're trying to legislate aesthetics here, and I don't think that's appropriate. I was the one who brought up the trapezoidals and triangles and vaulted ceilings. I think my own house would probably violate the ordinance also. I think I have more than 50% showing on the street. I don't like the looks of garages personally, but I don't think we should legislate that.
So, just to get back at Alan a little bit, how much can we fine Alan for being in violation? So, I mean, the other point here too is that, you know, I mean, houses are, I mean, we've seen quite a growth in our community in the last couple of years and stuff like that. But if there's one area that's still been stressed, it's been Foxfire. And if we can get a house to be built out there, I don't care what it looks like, as long as it's not an empty lot. I know. Better not be a trailer, but yeah, I know. You know what my point is? I guess I'm saying it looks like every other house that's out there, so I shouldn't have said that. You're right. So are we okay? Now, this is only on here as a discussion, so Jeff, this is something you're going to have to bring forward to City Planning Commission at our next meeting, and then it will have to be, now that would be a change to zoning. I mean, how quickly can this be done? And the second part of the question is how quickly could this house get a building or get approved to start?
The answer to the second question is the easier one, and that is as soon as the amended zoning ordinance is adopted and published. As far as how soon that'll happen, I kind of have to defer to Aaron on it. We're calling it the third round of amendments, and we could certainly attach this to that third round of amendments.
Yeah, Jeff, we've talked about taking more pressing issues maybe faster than that third round because there's some more, I think that's a bigger conversation. I know we're having that conversation at some point in the near future here. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but this is ultimately something that would have to get approved by council. So if the direction tonight from Plan Commission was that this would be supported to strike that, I believe we could move and draft something for a council meeting if Plan Commission is comfortable with that. And then we're looking at a public notice. I believe it's a class, well, I think it's a 2-week public notice, and then we're looking at first reading, second reading. Second, a reading could be waived if deemed necessary.
Aaron, could I ask you, could you bring up the one image that showed just garage?
This one?
That one. So if striking it completely, and this is obviously a very well-designed, beautifully constructed structure, clearly, what I would ask the Plan Commission, what I'll ask the Plan Commission right now is, if it weren't that pretty and it weren't that attractive, is the Plan Commission comfortable with anybody building new houses in the city of Waupaca where you can't even see the house when you look at the structure? You'll only see garage. So if we strike this entirely, that would be completely permissible. If, on the other hand, you want some portion of the principal structure to be visible, not just the attached garage, then the question would be, do you take the 50% number and increase it to 70%? If you increased it to 70%, every single house that exists in the city of Waupaca today, I would bet, would be compliant, including the house that we're discussing. If you eliminate it entirely, again, houses can be built that show nothing but the garage as its facade. Which is, again, it's your decision as to whether that's acceptable or not. That's just something that will certainly be possible, if not probable, if you strike the entire section.
Jeff, that sounds like a good idea, except I have this question. I know we're running long here, but so if we have a detached garage, and if allowable use is that you have a grandma's apartment or whatever above the garage, would that be an issue then if we did that, or is that a different part of the zoning?
Yeah, great question, Mayor Smith. That would be dealt with separately. So those are detached structures. They're not governed under this. This section is specific to attached garages.
Okay. All right.
So if in this picture, those 3 windows, what if those 3 windows are finished space? Does that count as the residential, like part of the residence, or is that still considered the garage?
Another good question. Under the language currently in the zoning ordinance, it's not about the structure, it's about the garage doors. So it'd be the measurement, the lineal measurement of those 2 garage doors. In this case, I'm guessing, looking at it, they would account for 90%, 92% of the entire structure. And I apologize, as a zoning administrator in many communities, I've reviewed examples of things that no community would want. And I have one community that adopted these regulations because one particular developer kept coming forward with these units that were all garage with the smallest possible allowable single-family dwelling attached to the back. And in one instance, it was a 6-stall garage that had, if I remember right, a 750 square foot living arrangement in back. The total garage size was 2,600 square feet. So this isn't a garage, this isn't a house anymore. It's a garage that somebody has a little living unit in. Now, the one that we're talking about here, and certainly the mayor's house and the other houses that are in Foxfire, are not that, right? They are what they are. My concern is if there isn't some threshold beyond which it's non-compliant, then be prepared for the potential that there's going to be something that you absolutely as a council want to deny, but you can't deny because the ordinance allows it. That's where I'm going, I guess.
Well,
and forgive me in that, but I reacted when I first saw that proposal come in another client community. It kind of made me chuckle.
Personally, I guess I would like to see at least a front door and one window. So, I mean, I like the concept of the 70%, especially since you're saying every home in the city would be in compliant as is right now.
Yeah, I would be in favor of bumping it from 50 to 70.
Yeah.
Okay. Alan, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, as I said before, I don't care to see a lot of garage doors, but I really don't like to see us legislate aesthetics either.
Okay, Angela, then you're kind of the tiebreaker here, so.
I'm in agreement with you. I like to see some of the structure as well. I just worry about, say it looks like that. That's beautiful, and that's the only thing that fits on this lot. Can they come and bring forth and say, like, is that a conditional use permit? Or, I mean, that's and I know it's few and far between. I'm just.
Yeah, and Angela does bring up a good point. You know, that is an example of a really nicely designed lake house.
And I agree. I don't want someone coming in and putting something that looks awful. That's not. I don't agree with that either.
If I can jump in there are some built-in constraints, though, of course, right? When we're talking about narrow city lots, there's maximum allowable development, maximum or minimum required open space. The width of the parcel limits the kind of structure that can go on it. If somebody comes before the Plan Commission proposing a 3,500 square foot house on a 5,000 or 6,000 square, an 8,000 square foot lot, it's the answer is no. It's not that the house isn't incredibly attractive. It's not that the city wouldn't love the tax base. It's that structure cannot comply with the zoning requirements of that very small, very narrow city lot. So the argument, with all due respect to whoever might make that argument, the argument that, well, I can't have a 5-stall garage then. And the answer is, well, of course you can't, because you're buying an 8,500 square foot city lot that's 66 feet wide. If you want an 8,000 square foot house with 8-stall garage, buy a 5-acre lot that can accommodate your wishes. So I don't mean to be flippant about that, but that argument is a bit problematic from the standpoint of administering the zoning code, because there's certainly going to be limitations regarding setbacks and minimum open space that would come into play anyway.
So, all right, I think I'm not sure if I get this out of it, actually. So we've heard 70%, and we've heard just removing.
I mean, I'll agree with the 70%. That's.
Yeah, and I would agree the other way too, quite honestly, but I like the 70% better.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That's 20% more than what it is now, right? I think that's.
I'll go with 70% also.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Oh, you're going to flip, and I was going to just say we're never getting out of here.
Well, I was just saying, if it looks like Jeff said, you gave us too good of an example. You should have gave us a pole building, with some funky windows up on top, and then it would have made it easier.
All right, we talked about that too. We're like,
Yeah, for what it's worth, I spoke at length with the developer, the contractor, and as I said to him, I found no pleasure whatsoever in denying this structure.
Yeah, it's a nice looking, nicely designed.
All right, well, let's find out from the developer how quick this guy wants to get going, and see if we have to fast track this or if we could just go through normal channels here.
Well, and I can answer that. He would like to get going as fast as possible. And that was the last thing I was going to bring up. Jeff, I believe in the past we've done like early approval for like foundations and such from a building standpoint, as these types of things were kind of working through the process. I know we like to keep zoning and building in different silos, but I believe that's something we have done. Any comments there?
Yeah, Aaron, my only comment is I have no comment regarding the building code.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, all right, that's good.
I think say as a site plan, I shouldn't have said that so quickly. A site plan is required, and site plan approval is required before the building inspectors will do what the building inspectors do. So the question would be for Ms. Drager and Ms. Holsworth, would the building inspectors issue a permit or approval to begin that process prior to the zoning administrator approving the site plan? So when I said that, I didn't mean to be flippant. It's just their decision. The zoning ordinance says site plan must be approved. Site plan permit must be approved prior to commencement of construction.
All right, thank you. I think you know your walking papers here, so. All right, I think that's it for tonight. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All right, motion by Olson, second by Keelan that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Say nay. Motion carried. We're adjourned at 7:17 PM. Have a great night.